So what's happened in the last 50 years, often through US intervention, has been that when, for example, the US puts massive pressure on one particular country to try to stop production of drugs or the growth of cocaine or whatever it may be, often those drug cartels move elsewhere. And you see that time and time again. So one of the things I investigated from my drug war book was how at various times the US in Honduras has attempted to put massive pressure, sort of, and I say sort of because it's been pretty half-hearted, on elements of the Honduran military or government to crack down on the fact that Honduras was, for a number of years, a key transit country for cocaine. So a lot of the cocaine going from South America into the US and up people's noses was going via Honduras. And I saw this similarly in West Africa, where the US has put a lot of pressure on Guinea-Bissau, this tiny West African nation. And if for some reason drug cartels weren't able to use Guinea-Bissau as a transit nation, they moved to the country next door, which is exactly what's happened. So in the last decade or decade and a half, a lot of West African nations, whether it's Guinea-Bissau or Ivory Coast or others, are staging posts or transit countries for cocaine. And you see similar things in Latin America as well, or Central America, where if one country becomes unavailable or there's a small short-term crackdown on drug cartels, cartels move elsewhere. In other words, it's like whack-a-mole in a way, where either domestic police or military or US supporters or DEA agents attempt to try to deal with a drug problem in one country, it's going to move somewhere else. And again, it comes to the same reason, because demand for the drugs in the US is there. If demand stopped tomorrow, or if drugs were legalized, which is a view I personally share, and regulated, the impact or influence of criminal drug cartels drops massively. And you know this works because, for example, when a lot of US states in the last decade have legalized cannabis, in states that are near the Mexican border, drug cartels have realized that they can no longer make much money from cannabis, and they've switched to other drugs instead, fentanyl, cocaine, etc. Now, what that shows you is very clear. It says that if you legalize all drugs and regulate all drugs, that I'm not saying these criminal gangs would disappear. I'm sure they'd move into some other business, but that is the key way they make their money. And you take away the huge, destructive, violent element of the drug trade, which is criminal drug networks. And that's why there are growing voices, including in the US, to legalize and regulate all drugs.